Welcome to our presentation. This is What's the Move? Brief overview of our team. I am Brad Brucewitz.
I'm Nate Dumford.
I'm Caleb Cargill.
And I'm Jonathan Linden.
So as I said, my name is Brad, and I'll just be kind of giving us some background information into our project. So we really wanted to build a mobile application and to solve a specific problem. And one problem that all of us have faced is having family or friends in town and not knowing what to do with them. And so What's the Move is a play on the slang term, what's the move, meaning what are we going to do tonight? Like what things can we do? So what's the move is the question, and we sought to answer that question and to make the process of finding fun things to do near us an easier and simpler process. And some of the intellectual merits behind our project. So from market research, there are similar softwares that can be found, like TripAdvisor, Eventbrite, Around Me, pretty similar applications. But how What's the Move stands out is that we use a preferential algorithm for more personal and customizable results than these other applications. And we use a cross-platform and easy-to-use UI. And some of the broader impacts of our mobile application, What's the Move, is that it can impact society by connecting people with others, giving them things to do in person, to interact with others and do fun things. And it also has the potential to promote local businesses because we are suggesting things to do around users. And so we'll be suggesting local businesses as activities.
Hi, so I'm going to be talking about our design diagrams. So the user launches the application and then they either log in or create an account. During account creation, the user enters in specific information to them that is things that don't change, like their age or their hometown. And then next, the user is prompted to search for their move, where they'll enter even more information about what they specifically want to do that night. And then our application calls on the Google Places API, and then we'll send a results list of possible things for the person to do tonight. So some of our design specifications, this diagram here shows it demonstrates an overview of how the application has been architected. This design allows for reusability of code for various implementations. For example, a web-based UI could be created and could use the same code as a mobile-based UI does. Or the API could be made public to be used by outside applications. And so this has helped us to accomplish a lot more because we have created an application that is able to reuse code a lot. As far as our project implementation goes, our front end uses Xamarin Forms and a class library of view models that is all brought together by an MVVM architecture style. As far as backend, we've got a .NET API and class libraries that uses models and model implementations. And then for our database, we have a SQL server that's hosted on Azure. And so similar to our implementation, our technologies, like I said, our front end is Xamarin and our back end is .NET. But we also use the Google Places API. That's what gives us our end results, and we are able to find our list of places to recommend to the user, and then our SQL server, again, for our database.
At the beginning of this year, as we started this project, we sat down and listed out some milestones that we wanted to accomplish, along with some target dates that we wanted to finish them by. So we began working on the project by researching project constraints, and then moved into finishing up of planning and documenting what the project would be involved with. In the fall, we created a kind of preliminary presentation of the project just to show what we would be trying to achieve. And then we really started to research technologies that we would use to actually make the project. After researching, we began creating designs and wireframes for user interfaces to kind of guide us as we developed. After we made our wireframes, we really began to start our development. So we designed an algorithm for choosing activities, which uses the Google Places API. We started out by developing a semi-functional app with the UI working and the backend working, just to use as a proof of concept. And once we saw that that worked, we really began to implement the major business logic and finish all of the front end and back end development that was required. Once we finished that, we started testing and found bugs and just fixed those bugs as we found them. So I will take us through a demo of the application. So over here on the left, we have our Android emulator with the application running. Once the app opens up, the user is prompted to log in. A new account can be created if needed, but I already have an account, so I'll log in with my own account. We implemented a hashing function behind the scenes to hash the password and compare to the hashed password that we're storing in our database, but we are not storing plain text passwords. Once the user logs in, they're taken to this home screen where they have a few different options to either search for moves nearby or look at favorite moves that they have seen in the past, or to just kind of find random moves suggested by the app. I'll click this find the move to open up the preference editing screen and set custom preferences for this specific search. We do keep track of a history of preferences, and the user can select one of those to search based off of if they like. So I'll select this one, and those fields are filled out automatically. And then I can go and edit fields if I want to see just a variation of results. I'll click once I'm done editing my preferences, and now it is making calls to our web API, which is making calls to the Google Places API to find activities nearby. Now this part is kind of slow because of limitations of the Google Places API that we have found. In order to get all of the needed information for each place, we have to make multiple calls to the Google Places API, which just kind of causes it to be a little bit slower than desired. As you can see, the results popped up, and I can scroll through these to see really restaurants nearby. On each card, you can see access to the website and the address, and then also rating information. If I wanted to favorite one of these activities, I could swipe over to the left and click favorite. And then I could filter this view to see favorite activities. So you can see the activity that I just favorited, and this is one that I have favorited in the past. If I go back to the home screen, I can go into my navigation menu and see some other views that are available. So we have this favorite moves view, which really just shows all the activities that I've favorited in the past. So you can see the Mad Mike's burgers and fries that I just favorited, as well as some others that I have in the past. We also have a profile settings view where I can see my various profile settings as well as edit my default zip code. And then finally, we have a app settings where I can change between light mode or dark mode if I want to. Over on the right, we have our web API. This is just the Swagger definition of our web API, which allows me to kind of test it and play around with it if I want to. The reason we did this, as Nate described earlier, is just for code reusability. So we could call this web API from other applications, like a desktop application, or we could even host a website alongside this web API to use the same functions that have already been written. But now we'll jump back into the presentation.
And for the results, we set out to create an application that could talk to something and then get results. And we met that. We were able to make a mobile UI that talks to our web API and an SQL database that would then grab places via the Google Places API. So we met that accomplishment. And we also wanted to be able to create an account and then grab places, like I said before, and then store those places as a favorite bound to that user. So we were also able to accomplish that. So overall, we were able to accomplish our goal of making an application to find stuff to do and then also store those for later so you can remember them. So for the challenges, the biggest challenge for this is that none of us are really mobile application developers. So we had to do a lot of research for that. Then as we were developing, we also had to go back in and change a lot of old code. One example I can immediately think of this is Xamarin has a content page. What we ended up having to do was we had to extend that and make a content page base that would be used for everything. That was a big refactor, but it was just stuff like that where we'd be doing something, we'd want to go add functionality and we'd be like, oh, we can't do this. So we had to go overwrite some old code so we could have a better application. And so then what also went along with that is there was a lot of paired programming. Since none of us really knew like that well what we were doing, when one of us would find something out, we would kind of go in and we would teach the others. So that was kind of the biggest challenge, was just figuring out what to do for mobile development. So lessons learned, the first one is more pull requests are better. So when there's 4 of us working on one code base, so obviously if we're just all pushing the main, stuff is going to get overridden, forgotten, kind of hard to keep track of everything. So doing pull requests kind of lets us keep track of what's actually getting pushed in, and it lets us combat bugs better. The second one is write unit tests early. So we kind of just jumped right in and we just started developing. We didn't really think that much about writing unit tests then. So by the time we had like a functional working skeleton, we didn't have any unit tests to support that. So we found out that it is a lot harder to go in and add unit tests than it is to build upon them from the start. The third one is, as Caleb said, the Google Places API was kind of slow, and for our application, slow is bad. So we definitely want to go in and figure out how we can kind of improve that to make it more efficient. So one thing we could do is go in and figure out what fields do we need and see if we can kind of ignore some calls and not grab fields that we don't need at all. And then finally, it's just if we publish this application, we would definitely want to set up multiple environments. We want to have a production one, a development one, maybe a testing environment. All of that just so it's easier to keep track of what's being made, and then that way we can keep track of bugs better. Because one bug we initially had was, for some reason, buttons had to be clicked twice. Obviously, if we had one environment and we made that code change, we wouldn't want that at all because that's really weird and unintuitive. We would have to go in and make a hot fix or tell people somehow. So if we had multiple testing environments, we would be able to circumvent that. And then finally, if you want to see kind of our source code or kind of our process for figuring out what to do, on our left, we have a QR code that will take you to our GitHub page that has all kinds of cool stuff, the code, a README, and just more documents if you want to go into that more. Then on the right, we have a Miro board. If you kind of want to see our Kanban methodology, how we're grabbing tickets and shifting them. So if you want to go check those out, feel free to. And thank you for your time.